When someone acts this way around you, their heart already belongs to you completely. Have you ever found yourself watching someone and wondering why they behave so distinctively when they're around you? Picture yourself at a dinner party with friends where there's that one person who keeps seeking eye contact with you, laughs just a bit too enthusiastically at your jokes, and always manages to find an excuse to sit right next to you. Freud would have immediately recognized these telltale signs because the father of psychoanalysis believed our unconscious mind always betrays our deepest feelings, even when our rational thoughts try desperately to conceal them. What you're about to discover will permanently transform how you interpret the behaviors of everyone around you. The 6 unconscious signals, originally identified by Freud himself, reveal exactly when someone has already formed an emotional bond with you, even if they remain completely unaware of it. This isn't about manipulation, but rather about gaining profound insight into human psychology. If you want to keep exploring the hidden secrets of human behavior, make sure to subscribe to the channel. The first signal you're going to learn is so incredibly powerful that once you recognize it, you'll never be able to ignore it again. Signal number 1 involves repeating your name far more frequently than actually necessary. Have you ever noticed how certain people insert your name into practically every sentence when speaking with you? They say things like, "Hello, Sarah, how are you doing, Sarah? You know, Sarah, I was just thinking." This isn't coincidental at all, because their unconscious mind is actively working. Imagine being at your workplace where there's a colleague who during every meeting always addresses you by name, even when it's completely unnecessary. While others simply say, "I think we should," this person says, "Sarah, I think we should." This seemingly innocent repetition conceals a deeply rooted psychological mechanism. Freud discovered that when we feel attracted to someone, our unconscious constantly seeks to create intimacy with them. Pronouncing someone's name represents one of the most primitive ways to establish connection. It's as if the unconscious is declaring, "I want you to know that I'm truly seeing you, that I'm recognizing you as someone uniquely special." From a psychoanalytic perspective, this behavior stems from what Freud termed libidinal investment of the object. When someone captures our emotional attention, we invest psychic energy into them. The name becomes a vehicle for channeling this energy, and every time we pronounce it, we strengthen the unconscious bond. But there's even more to understand. Name repetition also serves as a defense mechanism against separation anxiety. By continuously pronouncing your name, the other person is unconsciously trying to keep you in the conversation, to extend the contact. It's as though they fear that by not saying your name, you might drift away or forget about them entirely. This signal becomes particularly evident in written communications. Observe the messages you receive and notice if someone always begins with your name, even when it's completely unnecessary. In casual messages between friends, we rarely use names, but when someone is unconsciously attracted, the name becomes a constant presence. The fascinating aspect is that often the person doesn't even realize they're doing this. When you point it out to them, they might even deny it or justify it by claiming it's simply good manners. But Freud taught us that nothing in human behavior is truly accidental, and every repetition serves as a clue. Have you ever observed this pattern in your own behavior? Reflect on how you act with people who genuinely interest you, and you'll probably discover that you also use their names more often than you normally would. But this represents just the first of 6 signals, and the next one concerns an even more subtle behavior that reveals how the unconscious seeks to imitate you without you even noticing. Signal number 2 happens when they unconsciously begin imitating your gestures and expressions. Watch carefully and notice if when you're with this person, they drink their coffee immediately after you drink yours, touch their face when you do, or assume your exact same posture without realizing it. Imagine being at happy hour with a group of friends where someone, without any awareness, copies your movements. If you cross your arms, within seconds they cross theirs too. If you lean back against your chair, they do the same. If you gesture while speaking, they start gesturing as well. This isn't coincidence, but rather the phenomenon Freud called primary identification. From a psychoanalytic viewpoint, imitation represents one of the most archaic forms of emotional connection, dating back to childhood, when children learn to connect with their mothers by imitating them. Freud discovered that when we feel attracted to someone, we unconsciously reactivate these primitive mechanisms. It's as if our ego seeks to merge with the other person through mimesis. This behavior reveals what psychoanalysts call narcissistic investment of the object, which simply means when someone attracts us profoundly, part of us wants to become like that person. The unconscious perceives the other as an ideal to achieve, and imitation becomes the way to reduce psychological distance. But there's an even more fascinating aspect, because Freud noticed that imitation also serves as an unconscious proof of love. It's as if the person is saying without words, "See, we're similar, we're compatible. You can trust me because I'm like you." It's an unconscious attempt to create what psychologists call interpersonal synchrony. Mirroring manifests in surprising ways, and you might notice this person starts using your same expressions, your favorite words, even your way of laughing. If you often say "awesome," after a while they'll start saying it too. If you have the habit of pausing before responding, they'll develop the same habit. This signal is particularly powerful because it's completely involuntary, since nobody consciously decides to imitate someone else's gestures during normal conversation. It's the unconscious taking control, revealing an emotional attachment that the rational mind might not have recognized yet. There's also a defense mechanism at work, because by imitating you, the person reduces anxiety about differences. The unconscious fears the different because it perceives it as potentially dangerous. But if we can become similar to the object of our interest, we eliminate this threat. Observe the people around you with this new awareness, and you'll notice that mirroring is everywhere, but it's particularly intense when there's an unrecognized emotional attachment. The next signal concerns an even more subtle behavior involving how the unconscious reveals attraction through what Freud called revealing lapses. Signal number 3 occurs when they make small mistakes that bring them closer to you. Freud said, "No errors are accidental because every lapse, every forgetfulness, every apparently innocent mistake conceals an unconscious desire." When someone feels attracted to you, their errors begin following a precise pattern. Imagine this scene where you're at a party and someone keeps taking the wrong path and always ends up where you are. They say they went to the bathroom but casually passed by the table where you're chatting. They claim to be looking for the kitchen but find themselves on the terrace where you're getting some fresh air. According to Freud, these aren't errors, but rather parapraxes that reveal repressed desires. Psychoanalysis teaches us that the unconscious is much more intelligent than the conscious mind. While the rational part tries to maintain distance out of fear of rejection or respect for social conventions, the unconscious finds creative ways to circumvent these resistances, and small mistakes become its preferred tool. This mechanism is called compromise formation, where the unconscious wants to get closer to you, but the superego prevents it. So it finds a solution by creating apparently casual situations that allow approach without having to admit the intention. Observe carefully and notice if this person often forgets things at your house, gets the time wrong and arrives when you're still there, or gets confused with addresses and ends up where you work. Freud called these behaviors parapraxes, actions that seem like errors but reveal unconscious desires. Another classic example is the verbal slip, where the person might call you by their ex-partner's name, but not because they confuse you with them. On the contrary, the unconscious is revealing that you have assumed the same emotional importance in their psyche. Or they might say, "when we return," instead of "when you return," unconsciously revealing the desire to be included in your future plans. Digital lapses are particularly interesting in the modern era. So how often does it happen that someone sends a message by mistake specifically to you or tags you in a photo where you weren't present? Freud would say the unconscious has found new channels to express itself through technology. There's also the phenomenon of selective forgetfulness, where the person might forget appointments with others but remember perfectly those with you, or they might lose other people's objects but jealously guard something you touched or that belongs to you. These behaviors reveal what Freud called investment of the love object, because the unconscious assigns different priorities to stimuli based on their emotional value. What concerns you acquires special importance and gets processed differently by the brain. The extraordinary thing is that the person often doesn't realize these patterns, and if you point it out to them, they might even get offended or deny it. But for Freud, denial itself was a further clue to the hidden truth. The next signal concerns something even deeper, involving how attraction manifests through our most primitive defense mechanisms. Signal number 4 happens when they start attributing to you feelings that they actually experience themselves. When someone begins making statements like, "I think you're interested in me," "It seems like you're flirting," or "I feel there's something between us," Freud would say they're projecting their own unconscious feelings onto you. Imagine having a friend who suddenly starts interpreting every one of your gestures as a sign of romantic interest. She tells you that you're looking at her in a particular way, that your tone of voice is different when you speak with her, that according to her you feel something. In reality, she's projecting her hidden attraction onto you. Projection is one of the most powerful defense mechanisms identified by Freud, and it works like this. When we have feelings we can't consciously accept, we displace them onto the other person. It's easier to say "you feel something for me" than to admit "I feel something for you." From a psychoanalytic perspective, this happens because the ego can't integrate these feelings without creating anxiety. If we consciously recognized our attraction, we'd have to face the fear of rejection, social judgment, or conflicts with our values. Projection allows us to maintain the illusion that it's the other person who feels something, not us. But there's an even more subtle aspect, because often projection manifests through apparently innocent questions like, "But what do you feel for me? Do you think we could ever be more than friends? Or do you think we're compatible?" These questions seem like neutral curiosity, but they actually reveal that the person is already fantasizing about these possibilities. Freud noticed that projection often creates what he called false recognition, where the person starts interpreting neutral signals as confirmations of their projections. If you smile, they think you're flirting. If you're kind, they believe you're interested. If you listen to them attentively, they interpret simple courtesy as romantic attraction. Another indicator occurs when the person starts creating imaginary romantic narratives by telling you dreams where you appeared, or hypothetical situations like "if we were dating" or "imagine if we lived together." They're projecting their unconscious desires through fantasy. Projection also manifests through jealousy, so if this person starts showing annoyance when you talk to others or makes comments about your friends, they're projecting onto you the importance you have for them. Freud would say that jealousy is always a symptom of emotional investment. There's also projection through comparison with statements like, "We are different from others," "There's something special between us," or "It's not like with other people." They're creating a separate category for the relationship with you, revealing its particular importance in their psyche. The mechanism is so powerful that often the person even convinces themselves that you're the one who's interested, which allows them to maintain the illusion of control, because if you're the one who's attracted, they can decide whether to reciprocate or not. But the unconscious never lies, and every projection is actually a disguised admission. The next signal concerns something even deeper, involving how attraction manifests through our relationship with time and space. Signal number 5 reveals how time and space change when they're with you. Have you ever noticed how some people completely lose track of time when in your company? They arrive early, stay longer than planned, and always find just 5 more minutes to chat. According to Freud, this reveals an unconscious desire to expand shared moments. Imagine being at a cafe with someone who was supposed to stay only half an hour, but 2 hours pass, and they continue finding conversation topics, ordering one last coffee, checking their watch, but never actually getting up to leave. Their unconscious is sabotaging every attempt by the rational mind to end the encounter. From a psychoanalytic perspective, this behavior reveals what Freud called the pleasure principle, because when we're with someone who attracts us, the unconscious seeks to maximize contact time since it generates pleasure. Time becomes elastic, where minutes seem to fly when we're happy, but the unconscious tries to slow them down through behaviors. But there's also a spatial component, so observe how this person positions themselves relative to you. Do they subtly invade your personal space, sit closer than necessary, or when you walk together, do they instinctively reduce the distance? Freud discovered that attraction creates what he called bodily magnetism, an irresistible push to reduce physical distance. Spatial behavior is particularly revealing because it's almost completely unconscious, since nobody rationally decides to invade someone else's personal space. It's attraction that creates this primitive drive towards approach, as if the unconscious were trying to reproduce the physical intimacy it desires but cannot express openly. Another signal is temporal synchronization, where the person unconsciously starts adapting their rhythms to yours. If you're an early riser, they start waking up earlier. If you prefer dining late, they suddenly discover they're not hungry until late evening. It's as if their biological clock seeks to align with yours. Freud connected this behavior to the desire for symbiotic fusion, where the unconscious of the person in love wants to eliminate every separation, including the temporal one. Being synchronized means being connected at a primitive and deep level. Also observe how this person reacts when the encounter is about to end. Do they start talking faster, introduce new topics at the last minute, or invent excuses to prolong the moment with phrases like, "Oh, I forgot to tell you," "before you go," and or "just one last thing"? Their unconscious is fighting against separation. There's also the phenomenon of anticipated presence, where the person always arrives before others or seeks excuses to be in the place where they know you'll be. It's not punctuality, but rather an unconscious desire to maximize every possible moment of contact. Time and space become emotional dimensions when there's attraction, since they're no longer neutral coordinates, but become tools of the unconscious to express feelings that cannot be declared openly. Have you ever experienced this space-time alteration with someone? You probably have, and now you understand what was really happening. The sixth and final signal is perhaps the most powerful of all, because it concerns how attraction manifests through what Freud called emotional transference. Signal number 6 occurs when they start treating you as if you were someone very important from their past life. This is the deepest and most revealing signal, because when someone is unconsciously attracted to you, they begin projecting onto you emotional roles that belong to significant people from their past. Freud called this phenomenon transference, and it's the most powerful mechanism of unconscious attraction. Imagine noticing that someone starts treating you with a familiarity that seems disproportionate to the time you've known each other. They talk to you as if you've been friends forever, seek from you the type of support normally asked from very intimate people, or react to your words with an emotional intensity that seems excessive. This isn't coincidence, but transference. From a psychoanalytic perspective, transference occurs when the unconscious recognizes in you something that resonates with emotionally significant figures from the person's past. It could be a parent, a first love, a mentor, or anyone who left a deep emotional imprint. You become the screen onto which to project these unresolved relationships. Freud discovered that transference is always a sign of intense emotional attachment, since we don't project significant roles onto people who leave us indifferent. The very fact that you've become the container of these projections reveals that you've assumed special importance in this person's inner world. Observe the signals and notice if this person asks you for advice on very personal matters, as if you were a long-time confidant, gets angry with you for reasons that seem disproportionate, as if you were responsible for older wounds, attributes almost idealized qualities to you as if you were perfect, or conversely reacts to certain behaviors of yours with disappointment that seems excessive. All of these are signs of transference where the person isn't really reacting to you but to the figure from the past that you represent in their unconscious. It's as if they're reliving previous relationships through you. A particular type of transference is the parental one, so if someone starts seeking protection, guidance, or approval from you in a way that seems childish, they're probably projecting onto you the role of a parental figure. Or the opposite might happen, where they might start behaving protectively toward you, projecting onto you the role of the child who needs care. There's also erotic transference, the one most directly linked to romantic attraction, where the person starts seeing in you qualities of the ideal love object, often based on first loves or significant relationships from the past. You become the realization of an internal image they've been carrying inside for a long time. Transference is so powerful because it's completely unconscious, since the person doesn't realize they're projecting. For them, you are truly special, truly different, truly important, and they don't understand that they're reliving ancient dynamics through a new relationship. Freud considered transference as the royal road to the unconscious, so if you can recognize what role you're embodying for someone, you can understand much more about their true feelings than words could ever reveal. The extraordinary thing is that transference is reciprocal, meaning if someone projects onto you, it's very likely that you're also projecting something onto them. Attraction often arises from the meeting of two complementary transferences. Now you have all 6 signals, so the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? These aren't manipulation tricks, but windows into the human unconscious, because Freud taught us that our true feelings always emerge, even when we try to hide them. The unconscious doesn't know how to lie. But now that you know these signals, how will it change the way you look at relationships? Will you be able to recognize when someone is unconsciously revealing their feelings? And most importantly, do you have the courage to observe your own behaviors with this new awareness? Write in the comments what city you're watching from, because I want to discover how international our community of human psyche explorers really is. Don't forget to like this video if it opened a new perspective for you. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other secrets of the human mind, and share this content with anyone who might need these insights. Thank you for exploring the mysteries of the unconscious together, because the truth is always more fascinating than fiction.